There will come soft rains, and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous light. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire, and not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly, and spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. Martian Chronicles is a 1950 novel, fix-up, short story thing that's kind of going on by Bradbury, who, of course, is rather famous. And it doesn't feel like science fiction, but it is science fiction. Definitely feels like some contemporary commentary, and it is, relatively early into the Cold War, and that becomes pretty obvious. So it is a collection of rather short stories. There are 26, technically a fix-up novel. The stories chronicle Americans fleeing a troubled Earth and interacting with the indigenous Martians before nuclear war erupts back on Earth. So we'll kind of go over some of these in order. I'll skip around because I can't talk about all 26, but let's get started. Rocket Summer takes place in 1999 or in 2030 in the 1997 edition. It's set in January. It's very, very short. They look at how rockets make the area briefly summer by increasing local temperature. Not sure how accurate that is, but I'll excuse such sci-fi from before the space race really kicking off. And then you have Illa, which is, again, 1990, 2000, or 2030. In February, this takes place on Mars, and the person that seems like a proper 1940s or 50s couple are actually Martians. And they resemble humans largely with different colors for things such as golden eyes. There's wonderful atmosphere and evoking emotions. It's beautifully mundane, and I could imagine similar feelings in conversation if Martians had come to Earth. It's very calm, no physical action. Illa is the name of a Martian, and she is a dreamer, but her emotion and ideas are chalked up to being a silly woman, essentially. Made me think of Lieber's The Moon is Green, if you've read that. And the Summer Nights, story number 3, set in 1999 or 2030. In August, another very short one, Martians are interrupted in their summer enjoyment as they randomly recite famous English poems, like Byron's She Walks in Beauty, which is worth your study, and I guess the Martians agree so. And then the Earthmen, again, same year, also in August, they visit like an American is visiting a different country, but it's an Earthman visiting a Martian house. Earth is largely considered to be unsuitable for life. There's too much oxygen, apparently, so these Earthmen are sent around in circles. We also get hints of Martian powers. It's very fun and macabre. Then we have the Taxpayer, set in the next year. In March, someone wants to join the third expedition and get away from it all. And it works well going into the next story, but it's a very short one. And then third expedition itself is about the fear of the state, kind of the third expedition leaving and arriving to a surprising Martian landscape. This one has some great cosmological exploration, and it's a bit terrifying. And then we have And the Moon Be Still as Bright, yet another expedition, more mystery, more emotion, and into the unknown that the world has generally always, been through. Themes of science and religion in proper tandem, or, where we don't lose our humanity as well. The Settlers is very, very short again. I could clarify that Bradbury is excellent at expressing an idea and evoking emotion in such a short time. It's really admirable. And then we have The Green Morning. Terraforming is mentioned, particularly making Mars green with earth trees. Not high on priorities. That would be mining, actually, because, money and stuff. And then we have more short ones. We have like A Mirrored Conversation, A Chance Meeting at a Time, which is actually one of my favorites, but that's all I have to say about it so far. That's Night Meeting. And then we have The First People, are males from the U.S. in The Share. And we have The Fire Balloons, which actually did not make it into the original version because it was released in 1951. Another tiny ones, a couple ones I'm not going to mention. Then we have The Way in the Middle of the Air. It uses what we call outdated language, but addresses Bradbury's frustration with racism against black Americans. It's a tense story about whites and blacks, and while a story by a white man from the perspective of white men characters, it's still, one of a kind for addressing the elephant in the room and addressing what was commonly believed to be okay, racism and prejudice, and was largely ignored. I won't tell you, again, most of the rest for the sake of time. But then we have Usher 2, which is worth mentioning. It's about a construction of a house like Poe's House of Usher. Also about book burnings, and so 1975, which of course is the past in this, but did not actually happen when it was written. It's kind of fantasy, like fairy tale, Alice in Wonderland, Poe, Lovecraft, Beers, Hawthorne. very much nods to those. The imagination has been restricted by law in this setting, and Hemingway is okay, apparently, but that's some fiery criticism, I feel like, honestly, if I've ever seen it. So, honestly, bravo to Bradbury here. It's a very macabre tale itself, and another one of my favorites. I also have The Martian, which is Mars as a ghost planet, like Earth could easily turn into with, nuclear winter. Martians as ghosts, and of those things lost. We have, the off-season, which is a story about home and greed, and then a bunch of other stories, and then There Will Come Soft Rains, which is actually, before reading this book, was the only thing I'd read by Bradbury, and I didn't realize it. I had read this in middle school, and it was very poignant, stuck with me very much, kind of like Flowers for Algernon did, I read in that same class. And then we had The Million Year Picnic, which is a hopeful ending, of course, as hopeful as Ragnarok can be, actually. So that's the last one. There's definitely themes of ignoring history. There's nuclear war and genocide being very pertinent to the times, and also Philistinism and censorship, conformity, hate of religion, militarism, racism, prosperity, how technology fits into things too. But it does all of this through narrative. Many authors of the time had big ideas but couldn't bring characters to life with those ideas. Bradbury does it beautifully, and even the strange is close enough to reality to be recognizable. And it's awesome. This is a beautiful collection. I have a hard time calling it a novel. Even if, it's fix-up, it doesn't really feel like a cohesive narrative. I do believe Bradbury himself said it was a masquerade. It's its own thing. An epic of humanity and aliens rather than a story of just a few characters. And you should definitely read it. Second book I finished this year, and one of my favorites. Anyways, Liam from Liam's Lyceum. I will catch you next time.